Thank you. Good morning. We're calling the meeting to order, and if we could have the announcement regarding, compliance with are we in compliance with open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Because comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of any time a single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Seeing none, I will, come on up. Please give your name for the record.
Hi, my name is John. Do you need my last name?
Yes.
Okay. Labreche, L-A.
I'm sorry, you have 1 minute.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So it's Labreche, L-A-B-R-E-C-H-E. Real quick then. So we've been in business for over 55 years in an area of town that is highly, it has a big homeless problem. Every time we come to the office, we have to deal with something. In the last couple weeks, it's been better, but it gets so bad to where our employees are afraid to get out of their car because there's a homeless person in a parking lot and they're kind of afraid, specifically female employees. I'm a compassionate person, and I realize that this is sensitive and we have to treat them humanely. But and to me, I'm directing this towards the ACLU and people who are too compassionate to the homeless. I don't see a homeless person living in a cardboard box as humane. I think it's inhumane to leave them on the streets, even if it means taking them to jail for a couple nights to get them into a proper shelter. I don't think it's humane for a young couple with a 3-year-old living on the streets that are highly intoxicated on methamphetamines and digging holes in my property wall. I think that's inhumane to leave them there. We've had a building burned down next to ours because a homeless man started a fire to stay warm. I don't think that's humane. Put them in a shelter and keep them warm. I've fed the homeless from our door, gave them water. I don't think that's humane. It's inhumane. Put them in a shelter, give them water and food. The homeless, they commit a lot of criminal acts. If we did it, we'd be in jail. So really, I want to say to the ACLU and to the people who are too compassionate, what gives you the right to give rights to homeless but take my rights away? What gives you the right to give rights to the homeless but takes a police officer's right away to do their job? What gives you the right to give rights to homeless, to damage property, but takes the rights of the owners away to do anything about it? The ACLU and the people who are too compassionate have started with a good cause, but now have gone too far. So I say, let's pass these laws, let's enforce the existing laws, and work together to solve the problem that meets everybody's needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public? Come on up.
Hi,
Please
good morning.
state your name first for the record.
Salvador Munoz.
And Oscar Cabrera.
Yeah, and we're both residents of downtown, and we live on 16th Street. And we just want to say, me as a father also, with a 15-year-old and a 2-year-old, that we feel that over the years, I came to downtown from Green Valley, full of hope and full of expectations, and I think that over the years, my tolerance has completely eroded. Yeah, I came to downtown with lots of patience for the homeless. But I just feel like they just do not want the assistance that they are provided, the shelter, the available to treatment. I've witnessed it many, many, many times, and I've seen them rejected over and over again. And I feel that it's in the 5 years that I've been living down there, it's just completely eroded the quality of life for me and my neighbors and my community, and just the ability for my daughter to be able to ride her bike down the street on the sidewalk, where she cannot because there's somebody who's strung out, passed out on the sidewalk, or somebody on drugs who I've witnessed people hallucinating with boulders on each hand, throwing them at just whoever they perceive is there, who's not there. So I don't want my daughter to have to encounter that, so I don't allow her to ride her bike down. A simple act of riding her bike down the street on the sidewalk, I cannot do because of what I've witnessed over the past 5 years. And I just ask that, somebody please do something. I think the time is now. Help us clean up our streets, help us clean up our community, and make it a safe place for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's
Real
all we
quick, I just
have.
wanted to say apologize to everyone because I was 5 minutes late, so I had a call I couldn't get off of, to be honest with you. So my apologies, but I could hear what was happening in the background, so thank you.
So I agree with what Saul said. I came from the... Oh,
Can you please state your name for the record?
Oscar Cabrera is my name.
Thank you.
I also been living in downtown since 2019, came with hopes. I'm from Dominican Republic. And I had a job here, so apply and got it. So, but the experience that I've been going through here in downtown, it's terrible. We're both good citizens. We were citizens of the month in August 2022, proud of that. But the experience is very hurtful. I've been documenting everything from having...
You can put it on the screen there, and they're able to show it overhead. Thank you.
From having a couple naked outside your garage to people that the other day that I was going to I was exiting my garage, and I almost ran over. Well, I ran over someone, and I called 911 right away, and the guy left, and the 911 agent told me, oh, he might have a warrant. So to the point that they almost could ruin my life, right, from having in my mind that I killed somebody. So it's been terrible. So I beg for help. We need to solve this issue as soon as possible.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Please come forward to the mic and state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Dedrich. I have something written. I'm here today as a representative of the Beverly Green neighborhood, a historic community that many of us work hard to preserve as a unique part of Las Vegas's cultural and architectural heritage. I'm speaking today in support of Bill number 2024-29, which amends LVMC Chapter 1086 to address camping, lodging, and similar activities in public right-of-way. Our neighborhood has unfortunately seen firsthand the growing issue of unhoused individuals camping in alleys around our homes and nearby small businesses. These individuals have trespassed onto our private properties, committed theft, and left behind mass amounts of litter while tagging our neighborhood with graffiti. This not only impacts the safety and well-being of our residents, but also threatens the integrity of our historic homes and the sense of pride that we have in maintaining the legacy of this part of Las Vegas. Beverly Green, like other historic neighborhoods, plays a vital role in preserving the rich history of our city. Our residents, who are homeowners and community members, invest significant time, money, and effort into maintaining and restoring the historical significance of our homes. We believe these areas should remain safe, clean, and inviting, not just for us, but for future generations and visitors who come to appreciate our city's history beyond the Strip. While we understand the complexities surrounding homelessness, we believe that passing this bill will help address some of the immediate issues we are facing. By enforcing prohibitions on camping, lodging in public spaces, it will allow us to better protect our homes and public area while still seeking long-term, compassionate solutions for the unhoused population. We urge the council to move forward with this amendment, as it will not only provide clear guidelines for enforcement, but also protect neighborhoods like Beverly Green, which are so essential to the fabric of our city. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else chill for public comment? If so, please step forward and say your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Filetto. I am a property manager off of 15th and Fremont Street. And I'm here to advocate as well for the neighborhood because I agree with all statements said in the past. I experience this on a daily basis. I mean, I'm coming into work literally knowing that I'm going to fight for the first hour of my day with people to get off the property. I have utility boxes being used as their living room, and they literally have drug paraphernalia everywhere. This is literally outside of my residents' windows. They can't open their window. A lot of them can't even walk into their car because there's people in between the cars, either sleeping or trying to live off the street. I mean, it's gotten very, very bad within the last year and a half that I've been managing this property. And I too have evidence of people who are just walking the street, and this is outside of people's front doors. My residents can't go outside to smoke because we're a smoke-free community, so a lot of them tend to come to the sidewalk to have a cigarette and can't seem to do that because there's so many people that are walking by unclothed, asking for money, asking for cigarettes, you name it. Myself, I've actually been threatened by some of these homeless people. I'm not 100% that they're homeless, but they're out there dealing drugs on a constant basis. And they have a very big problem with me coming up to them and asking them to leave the property. And obviously they don't want me to move their people from where they're at, but they are allowing for all this criminal activity to happen. And they think it's okay because I can't say anything about them being on the sidewalk. So I do think it would be very beneficial for not only me, but everyone who lives within my community to be able to call police and have the police actually be able to address this issue of people being able to set up camp. It would help eliminate them being in a constant place at all times so that this criminal activity wouldn't be allowed to happen so freely. I think that's it.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Please come to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Kayla, Kaylah. Last name is Maese. My colleague is Tatiana Smith, common spelling. I'm a civil rights analyst with the ACLU of Nevada, and Tia is a policy counsel for the ACLU. And so while the ACLU understands the city's efforts to maintain public order, this ordinance steps far beyond the bounds of the city of Grants v. Pass versus Johnson Supreme Court case. The United States Supreme Court ruled that the Grants Pass camping ordinance did not violate the 8th Amendment ban on cruel or unusual punishment, but it did not declare that such ordinances are entirely permissible or constitutionally valid. This proposed ordinance raises due process and equal protection concerns by explicitly targeting people experiencing homelessness for engaging in life-sustaining activities. Not only does this risk subjecting the city to litigation, but it also risks personal liability for police officers who are required to enforce this ordinance. Law enforcement officers will be tasked with enforcing this ordinance on a case-by-case basis, leading to confusion and inconsistency. Officers will be required to determine on the spot whether a person falls into the newly created unsheltered class, whether they have been properly informed of available resources, and whether they can provide proof of medical emergency or disability. This adds unnecessary complexity to police work, increases the risk of wrongful arrest, and opens the door to discriminatory enforcement. The confusion surrounds the ordinance enforcement will not only lead to public mistrust, but also the city to legal challenges. While this bill is not the solution for the issues faced by the city of Las Vegas, criminalizing homelessness is not only morally wrong, but also fiscally irresponsible and legally perilous. The recommending committee has the opportunity to reject this harmful ordinance and instead pursue policies that provide real solutions to homelessness, protect the public health, and uphold the dignity of all Las Vegas residents. The ACLU of Nevada strongly advises voting against this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and move on to item number 4 for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the September 16th, 2024 recommending committee meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the final minutes.
There's a motion. Please vote. And post. And we are still waiting, but there it goes.
Other screen, so.
It passed twice. How about that? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 5, bill number 2024-29 for possible action, amends LVMC chapter 10.86 relating to camping, lodging, and similar activities in public rights of way to apply the general prohibitions throughout the city and update applicable enforcement and penalty provisions. This is sponsored by Mayor Carolyn G. Goodman. I'll turn it over to our staff representatives.
Thank you, Chair. Jeff Dorkak, City Attorney. I'm joined by Chief Jason Potts of the Department of Public Safety and the recommending committee as well. Good morning. We are here on the first of 2 ordinances before the recommending committee today that are aimed at protecting both people and property within the city. Item number 5 on your agenda today is an update to our anti-encampment ordinance, which has been on the books in the city since it was passed by the City Council in late 2019, November to be exact, and it went into full effect in February of 2020, just before COVID. This bill is an update sponsored by Mayor Goodman, and it was assisted in terms of some of the ideas from her office as well as the city management team, and of course the city attorney's office drafted what you have before you today as part of the update. As you'll remember, the original bill back in 2019 dealt with the downtown area and residential areas throughout the city. This bill will go further than that, but I'm going to leave that for Mr. Steed to talk to in a few moments. I did want to highlight a couple things mentioned by the public speakers. First of all, what motivated this update? It was talked about a Supreme Court decision earlier in the summer, Grants Pass versus Johnson from the Supreme Court of the United States in a 6-3 decision, gave us pretty clear guidance on what we could and couldn't do in the realm of unhoused individuals camping on streets. And on that point, it's important to note that what we already have on the books and what we have in front of you today is a law that deals with everybody. Whether you're unhoused, whether you have a house, these prohibitions apply to you. You are not going to be permitted to camp in our right-of-ways. You're not going to be able to sit on the sidewalk, sleep on the sidewalk. This goes to everybody. So this is not a bill that is targeting unhoused. It deals with these, this conduct by anybody. The other points that were mentioned that I wanted to address first on the liability issue, if our public safety members, members of Chief Potts' team are in the course and scope of their employment and they are enforcing what we already have as part of the city code, or if this bill becomes the new city law, if they are in a course and scope, they are covered by the city. We represent them in court. We will pay for them if something goes wrong in terms of liability. But this bill as written is perfectly within the bounds of what the Supreme Court told us we could do, and it is meant to address some of the issues that were a little bit concerning for us under previous Ninth Circuit law, but we now believe is totally allowable under what the Supreme Court decided this summer. So with that, we stand behind what was drafted with this bill. Overall, I believe the intent here is to strengthen what we have on the books in terms of the right-of-way prohibitions, dealing with camping and similar activities. Before I turn it over to Chief Potts, or if he wants to go first, he can, but Chief Deputy Steed is also on standby to go through each of the items in the bill so that the audience can know what is overall in the package. So you want to do that first? Or?
Yes, sir. Jason Potts, Chief, Department of Public Safety, for the record. I think what's important is that you all know, obviously with council support over the last 10 years, we've doubled our resources. So some of the things that our approach that we take is very compassionate, it's empathetic. We have, obviously, with neighborhood services, we have 4 more teams. We have a conditions team led by Lieutenant Shepard, 7 of those members. And you always wonder what the homeless issues would look like if our conditions team did not exist. We also have a problem-oriented policing team that patrols our Fremont Street experience in our arts district. So we're pretty proud of some of the efforts that they've made. So just to give you a sense of this is with your support, council support, we've increased our numbers. Our capacity is continuing to increase every year. Sometimes we wonder, our expectations outpacing our capacity? But with your support, again, we have an allotted number of 120 marshals as opposed to 58 just 10 years ago. And these are some of the encampments that we deal with. It's, again, our approach is to educate, to offer resources to our unhoused at the Corridor of Hope, a homeless resource center, and the Recuperator Care Center. There's lots of things that the city has invested over the last few years. As you can see there, no American city should have tents and have sidewalks blocked as they're depicted in that photo, in those photos. Our folks, the middle photo, top middle, is the Owens and Main area, and we've cleaned that up since then. Some of the things that we do, again, from a compassionate, empathetic approach to the unhomed, we've had 5,000, this is year-over-year data, 5,000 unhoused individuals released to the street. 1,500 or so, 31% went through detox at least once. And then we've had 49% completed the detox protocol, with 39% booked back into jail as the recidivism piece to that. We know that 40% of our jail inmates are either unhoused or suffer from some sort of mental illness. We see that in the data by the medication that's prescribed to our inmates. 40% have mental health medication prescribed to them, and 40% are transient, meaning they don't have an address on record, so we assume that they're unhoused. So unfortunately, this is not just unique to our city, it's cities throughout the country. Our city jails and our county jails are becoming a default. They're filling the void for some of our unhomed and unhoused issues. A lot of areas have sobering centers, and they have an infrastructure such as a crisis stabilization units that unfortunately we don't always have here in Southern Nevada. This is year-over-year data. Detention center services, we've had 7,000 resources provided. Just to give you a sense of the compassion, our mantra at our city jail is leaving them better than we found them. Such things as substance abuse resources. We have a job fair that we participate in, NA, AA, you name it, even Hope for Prisoners is being in our jail in these job fairs and these discharge planning events. We're proud of this. This is our job skill certification. Again, leaving them better than we found them. We believe to break the cycles of incarceration that we try to offer a livable wage. And we're proud of the fact in the last 2 years we've offered a CMI, Custodial Management Institute ISSA certification, for a janitorial certification for a job to become a janitor. We've also offering safe food handling through ServSafe. And just in the data bears out, just in our jail, we've had a 6% recidivism rate, or 94% staying out of our city jail. That's not data looking at Clark County, but that's our city jail in the last year, so we're proud of that. And with that, that's my report.
And then before I turn it over again to Mr. Steed, just for the record and for the council, or for the committee's knowledge, of course, we have Deputy City Manager Newby along with Director Barajas in the audience in terms of if there are any questions that go along with our MORE program or what they're seeing in terms of neighborhood services, what they provide on the streets. I know also Assistant City Attorney Carly Helbert's here if there's any questions about some of the statistics in terms of how we've been enforcing the encampment law over the last few years. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Steed, and he can walk you through what's in the update for this bill.
Thank you. As Mr. Dorkak pointed out, the provisions of our code on this subject currently limit the prohibitions to areas near residential, public rights-of-way near residential and certain downtown districts. The combination of Section 1 of this ordinance and Section 3 does a couple of things. It repeals that limitation so that the prohibitions are now citywide, and it also repeals the provision that required or that limited us to arrest, or said we couldn't arrest or put people in jail, et cetera. Couldn't enforce the ordinance if beds were full at the courtyard, the homeless rescue mission, and other shelters. So there's a repeal of those provisions. Another thing that the bill does is it clarifies the definition of public right-of-way to include easements. That may or may not have been thought to be included in the past, but this clarifies the easements, including drainage easements, are included within the definition of public right-of-way. The bill also, as was mentioned before, a couple of affirmative defenses are if you are using a walker or something else because of a disability, or if you're engaged or experiencing a medical emergency. The clarification in this bill is that those defenses must be supported by evidence from a medical professional who will attest to that condition. The bill also indicates that if you're convicted of a violation of this provision more than twice within a 12-month period, there's a minimum jail term of 10 days. But it also points out that as an alternative to that jail term, a court may order a defendant to complete a rehabilitation program, specialty court program, or other program of treatment designed to assist homeless persons. If you have any questions about the contents of the bill, I'd be happy to answer them.
With that, Chair, we would turn it back to you for any questions, and then if you want to do the individual public hearing just for the item.
I do have a few questions, so if you gentlemen can stay close. Ms. Helbert, Mr. Dorkak offered you up, so I apologize. Can you please come up? And while you're walking up, the question I have is if you could walk us through on the judicial side what happens in the courts. If someone is detained, goes to jail, how is that processed through on the court side?
Absolutely. Assistant City Attorney Carly Helbert for the record. So what will typically happen is we can receive a case either by citation or by arrest. We screen the case to make sure that all the elements have been met, including whether or not the defendant has been offered resources at the HRC and refused to go. If that element is not met, then the case is denied and it does not proceed. If all the elements are met, then we approve the case. The defendant is arraigned on the charge. If they're in custody, they'll usually be arraigned in custody unless they meet qualification for pretrial release. If they're issued a citation, they'll be arraigned out of custody. However, if they do not appear, then they will go into bench warrant. They will be offered a public attorney if they cannot afford an attorney, and an offer will be extended. Depending on the circumstances of the case and the factual history, we'll offer a proposed sentence. Oftentimes, this will include being evaluated for a specialty court, which can include HOPE, which is a habitual offenders program, PST, which is the psychiatric stabilization treatment program, mental health court, which is for mental health issues as well. And then we also have the Fresh Start program, which is essentially just a homelessness component, whereas HOPE has a substance abuse component as well. The defendant gets evaluated for the treatment program, and they can say, yes, I'd like to undergo this program, at which time they'd make regular court appearances and comply with the judge's orders. Or they can say, no, I'm not interested. And then at that point in time, the city would offer some sort of likely custodial sentence in lieu of them going through the treatment program.
Are any of you familiar with how long a treatment protocol would last? So I think the minimum jail sentence was 10 days, was that right? Or maximum? Sorry to put everyone on the spot.
I think the minimum is 10 days
What's
in
the,
custody.
what's a treatment protocol? Are you familiar with that?
So yes, so it depends on what sort of program we think that you're going to be the most qualified to undergo. So with Fresh Start, which would probably be the primary program, we'll do a suspended sentence of usually somewhere between 30 and 90 days suspended with a broad stay out of trouble order. And that will usually go for about 12 months, where we're trying to assist the person with homelessness services. They do check-ins with the court for drug testing and things like that, and to make sure that we can perhaps connect with job training as well. And at the end of the year, if the person successfully completes the program, then they will just be the case will be closed out, and sometimes we even dismiss the case. We do what's known as a submittal, so that there's that additional benefit to go through the program, so that you don't have that conviction at the end of the day. However, if you say, yes, I want to do it, and I will qualify this with saying it's quite common that a defendant who's in custody will say, yes, I'd like to do the treatment, I'll show up at court next Wednesday, and then they no-show. Then what happens is we negotiate with the public attorney to impose the suspended sentence or a lesser amount.
For the unhoused, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and I'm sure you guys can too, but for the unhoused, how does the court contact them once they're discharged from the jail for the continuation of the program? What does that communication look like?
So if they undergo the specialty court program, we have court coordinators who are given they actually meet with the defendant before they're accepted into the program, and the court sentences them, so they have their contact information, and they'll be given a court card saying, you need to come back to the courthouse on this date. If they don't appear, then it'll go into bench warrant. The public attorney has the option of trying to reach out and contact the defendant as well with essentially the information that's been gathered by the court coordinator.
So, and Chief Potts, this is kind of goes along with the questioning that I had over the last couple of weeks, and I don't know how best to talk about it, so if you're able to kind of walk me through it. That, to me, seems like a potential gap is for someone who's unhoused, who's discharged from the jail, who may have started a treatment protocol, has access to the specialty court, the coordination of the court reaching out to that person. That's where I think there's opportunity and a potential handoff, soft handoff between the jail system and maybe a community partner. Is that line of thinking appropriate or inappropriate?
I think it's appropriate. I think it's a challenge. We do offer this discharge planner. We have a programs officer that deals with this, that gives these services, provides these services. So, we can definitely do better to have them intersect with Fresh Start and Hope Court.
Ms. Barajas, you're sitting back there, and your name was also mentioned, so can I have you come up too? Sorry. That's the piece that I'm most interested in, Ms. Barajas and Chief Potts, is a warm handoff for someone who's arrested under this particular ordinance. If they're in jail, they have access to a specialty court program. Discharged from jail, they're going to be pretty hard to track down, I think. I think the data would suggest that. Is there the opportunity to find a community partner to maybe do a pilot program to see if we can do a better job of helping someone transition from jail out of jail?
Yes, Arcelia Barajas for the record. We've actually been having conversations with the court, specifically with Angela Washington. We actually have another one coming up this week to talk about a process that we can put in place to where at least we can have some kind of streamlined avenue for them to be released from whether it's jail or a court program, and then reach our case management at the courtyard. So we are discussing those options right now.
So you do have the case manager talking with them at the courtyard, and are they, like Mayor Pro Tem said, are they reaching out then to our different partners to make sure that they get into recovery or whatever that is, or does that go through the courts?
So I think the court has programs as well. What we've been discussing, we do have case management at the courtyard, and we do referral. We have Nevada Behavioral Health, who does provide behavioral and mental health services. And so right now we have a process where they are referred to the courtyard. Sometimes the Aero shuttle can pick them up and take them to the courtyard, but we don't have a process right now to ensure that they are receiving services when they get to the courtyard or accessing. So they'll get there, but they have the option to leave the courtyard once the Aero drops them off. So we're trying to figure out a process so where we can connect and engage prior to them being released or at release, so that we can stay with them and continue to work with them to then engage and get enrolled in some of the services.
But when they have that hearing with the court, are they offered the services in, when they get arrested and they're in the jail, they have that hearing, do we offer them those services at that time? Or are they just able to leave on their own recognizance because they haven't committed a?
I think I can probably better
Okay,
handle
thank
that.
you.
So again, when, I'm going to speak primarily for Fresh Start, because I will just say for some of the upper level courts, they actually are transported to housing. Fresh Start doesn't offer direct housing, but Hope Mental Health Court, they get transported to a house. For the Fresh Start program, again, what would happen is they meet in custody with the court coordinator. They go over what is expected of them and which sort of services. The court coordinator will reach out to community partners to talk about what we can do to connect that. But then they are just ultimately released from the jail to come back to that court date and connect with the services.
Because we have no, I'm sorry, because we have no authority to hold them at that point or force them. Is that correct? Okay, thanks.
So here's an assumption on my part, and Chief and Deputy City Attorney, if you could help me understand, how connected are the courts and the jail system with the potential population that Ms. Barajas is talking about? Because my assumption is if you're meeting with the courts, you probably need to have the correction side of the DPS in there as well. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think we're actually in the process of doing a joint meeting too to address some of the concerns that have been brought up.
Okay.
We offer quite a bit of services, as I mentioned. You know, the discharge plan, we're proud of these services. Just to give you a sense of it, substance abuse service, release with medication or a script for medication, referred to Veteran Services Administration, employee services, health education program, the Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow, Medicaid. We even offer pain therapy and yoga as well in our jail, and, you know, West Care, fentanyl, you know, Narcan, just awareness, you know, you name it, we're trying to intersect. But I think you're right. I think there's a handoff that we're lacking, and we're definitely exploring that and trying to figure out how we can improve.
That's going to be my request, and I'll open up for public comment because that's part of this as well. For anyone who hasn't spoken before, but that's going to be part of my request is if we can do some kind of a pilot program on that soft handoff, because I think for me, that's an important consideration should this bill move forward. Unless there are questions, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the question is probably for Dorcak or Helbert, but I'd like to know about stats. How many people, perhaps in the past, 2023, 2022, have been arrested under this, and those numbers, what are those numbers?
I think Carly has the stats handy, so she'll give her a second to grab those. And I think they go all the way back to when the inception of the bill happened formally in 2020. But before she mentions the numbers, it's important to note what we have in the current bill and still what's in this bill is when Jason's team engages someone in violation of the law, they're going to tell them they're in violation and give them a chance to move on. So what we saw, and I think it's reflected in some of the stats, is the engagement that this piece of legislation allows, because then the law enforcement officer has reasonable suspicion they can approach the person, helps you avoid arrests and citations. It's, okay, sir, ma'am, would you please move along? And then as a result, what we saw was, I think, numbers that were lower than what we thought they would be, but I'll let Carly speak to those.
That's correct. So again, this goes from the time of enforcement. So in 2020, we had 10 defendants that were arrested or cited, 10 cases. 2021, 15. 2022, 25, 2023, 38, and as of July 31st of this year, 22.
So I think that's under 200 in total is what we figured.
Yeah, I believe it's 110 people
Yeah.
that have been arrested or cited under this ordinance.
Okay, I appreciate you all. I apologize for putting you on the spot. This is a public hearing. If anybody wants to step forward, we'll ask the city team to take a seat for just a few minutes. If you have already spoken, I don't know if we need to hear from you again. If you have not spoken, this would be your time to come and speak on this issue. And hearing and seeing none, I will close that public comment period. Mr. Dorcak, do you want to make any final comments?
No, we are good to go with everything that we presented as long as the committee's good with all their questions. The only other thing on this bill sponsored by the mayor, depending on well, regardless of what the recommending committee does today, I understand that she will likely hold the item in abeyance until the first meeting in November, if it goes to the full council, so that the entire city council can be there. She's been informed that Ward 3, through our office, Ward 3 will not be available at that meeting. So just kind of as for you all, and more importantly for the public that's interested, if the recommending committee refers this out today, the vote will be Wednesday, November 6th.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment thanking those who made public comment today, taking the chance to move downtown and open businesses there and thrive. And I hope that as a city, we can help you because we want you to continue to be downtown and we want to continue to grow downtown and thrive. So thank you for being here.
I'm going to make some comments, and then I'll entertain a motion. So in 2019, it was probably the most controversial bill that we had, the anti-camping ordinance, and there was a whole lot of media about it. It created lots of strenuous relationships, really for all of us up on this council. I happened to vote against it, but I totally understood why it was supported. It was a 5-2 decision. I had challenges with the implementation of it. I still struggle with implementation, and I talk about it openly. I do a number of ride-alongs with DPS and Metro. I don't think there's enough officers in the state to deal with the mental health challenges that we're struggling with. And that's what we have done as Nevada, is we've pushed a lot of our mental health and healthcare issues to the police departments, simply because we haven't built up anything fast enough to resolve some of the issues. So because it's important for me, for those who oppose this, to know, for the last 3 years, I've been working with the state of Nevada and Clark County and the city of Las Vegas and multiple jurisdictions, including the Metropolitan Police Department, on a crisis response system. We're not moving as fast as this community needs us to. But I do anticipate within the next year, we'll have a crisis response line set up. The county has purchased a building in East Las Vegas for a crisis response center that'll be managed by a behavioral health provider. And we're actively working. Even today, I have a call with the fire department and state of Nevada Medicaid professionals to talk about how we engage our public systems to pick people up and bring them to an appropriate center. An appropriate center would be a 23-hour stay to come off of whatever they're on, or to get a fresh meal, get a shower, and to realize the situation they're in, where there are somewhat available resources for them to come off of the streets. But this bill, for me, reflects a failure in our housing system. We don't have enough housing for folks. That's a challenge. We don't have a strong enough transportation system. We don't have a strong enough mental health or healthcare systems. All of those things are currently being worked on, and it's not happening fast enough. And so this bill, for me, is a Band-Aid approach, much like the bill in 2019. That being said, what we've seen over the last couple of years has been significant and detrimental to the overall public systems that we have. So it takes an enormous amount of money to clean up encampments. Resources that could go into other things in our community are now being pulled towards cleaning up large amounts of debris, tons and tons of debris. It's creating issues in our drainage systems. It's creating issues for small businesses. It's creating issues for neighborhoods. And I don't think right now there is one approach that's going to fix everything. So for me, this is a Band-Aid, but it's my commitment to continue to work on building out a mental health system that can adequately support the needs of our community. It's our commitment to adequately work on housing, not adequately, but actually work on housing. And I think we have the right team at the city of Las Vegas, and I think we have support at the county and the state level to build out things that are better and in the best interest of our community. So I don't think this is the best bill. However, I understand the pressures and the challenges that our community is facing. And all that being said, I wish we were a better Nevada. I wish we could do a better job. But all being said, I think that this is an okay approach. And Chief Potts, I'm a little bit anxious about putting too much pressure on the DPS team. I think I understand the priorities of Metro. I don't think this is going to be their first priority. I think this is going to put an enormous strain on the DPS team, and so I'm cognizant and aware of that, and I think we need to keep in very close communication around what kind of strain that puts on your services and resources and where you're going to pull from, because I am a little bit anxious about that as well. But if you can work with director of neighborhood services and hopefully community partners in the court system, that gets me to a point where I think we're doing something that's somewhat meaningful for those folks who do happen to get arrested, that if we're able to do a soft handoff and find a community partner who can take the scripts that they're given in jail and find a place for them to get scripts outside of jail and make sure they're connected to the court system, that gives me some sense that we're moving in at least the right direction, not just putting them in jail for 10 days and then kicking them out later on. And so if you can give me that commitment, I feel comfortable that this is an okay approach and we just have to strive to be better. That's a lot being said, but for me, 2019 was real rough. It was a real rough council meeting, and it's been a rough 4 years talking about this particular issue, and this would be me flip-flopping. I don't want to flip-flop, so I'm trying to put everything out there that I still feel very strongly about this particular issue. I think we can do a better job, but this is what it is. With all that being said, I am going to move to approve and move this forward to the October 16th City Council meeting, understanding that it might be a date to a later date. And that motion passes. Thank you all for your time and energy. Moving on to number 6, Bill number 2024-30 for possible action amends LVMC Title 10 to add a provision to prohibit unauthorized entry and other activity in proximity to railroad tracks. This is proposed by City Manager Mike Jansen. Mr. Ford, the show is yours.
He's on his way up. I was going to intro him. You gotta give Steve Ford an intro, so I was going to do that. This bill is somewhat of a companion to the previous bill. It again is aimed at dealing with protecting people and property, and it also goes to something, Chairman, you just said on the previous bill, which was city resources being used to help clean up some of this issue that we see on the ground. Specifically, of course, this deals with railroads. What the city manager was thinking about with the encampment bill was that we still had a couple holes possibly. One was the railroad, and then the second one was state-controlled highways. So for example, portions of Charleston, things like that. Those we can deal with through our partners at Metro. They're there to enforce what we have on city code there. With respect to the railroad, that's private property. We need to give them some additional tools so that they, being Metro, so that they can engage this property and clear it out when they have problems on it. And that's what the point of this bill is. Now, this is not a idea completely from the city of Las Vegas. In fact, earlier this summer, it passed in Reno. So we took the language that Reno got through to deal with their railroads and have put it together for our bill today. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ford and let him walk you through.
Thank you, Mr. Dorkak. For the record, Steve Ford, Deputy City Manager. I've been asked to present this item today for your consideration. As Jeff just said, earlier this year in August, the City of Reno passed an ordinance to make enforcement of trespassing near railroad tracks easier, the enforcement of that. The intent was to help address railroad maintenance, access, reduce repair costs, stormwater collection system interference, and ensure public safety. The new Reno ordinance amended that city's law to further prohibit trespassing on or near railroad tracks without requiring signage and fencing to be proof of this. The proposed ordinance before you mirrors almost exactly the ordinance passed in Reno, and its intended purpose is the same: to keep people in the rail corridor as safe as possible by restricting unauthorized access to the fullest extent possible. For your consideration, according to the Federal Railroad Administration, in 2023, there are almost 800 fatalities in the United States attributed specifically to pedestrians trespassing on railroad property. You'll notice the big jump right there from 2020 to 2023. Second, I found at least over the last 5 years, I found at least 4 train derailments that were either caused by or exacerbated by debris on tracks. I understand that nationwide, that's a very small percentage of railroad ton miles affected. However, when you consider the proximity of our tracks to this building, Clark County Government Center, district and municipal courts, not to mention the casinos, businesses, and all of the new residential that are now built along the rail corridor, plus the fact that these tracks routinely carry petroleum, chlorine, ammonia, and other chemicals, one mishap on these tracks could be catastrophic. I can't imagine seeing this less than 500 feet from the mayor's balcony if that were to happen in that particular location. Oops, wrong button. What did I do? Oh, there we go. Back one. All right, so encampments near and into the right-of-way, the UPRR right-of-way can become extensive in blocking storm and flood control facilities that could flood could flood businesses had those drainage ways been cleared. This is a video. I'll ask Jeff to play that for us. This is the flood control facility next to the tracks on Industrial. Some of you may or may not have seen this video. This was taken a couple of years ago. It's a large front-end loader that is pulling this out of this flood control structure. So you'll notice that this has actually no trespassing signs posted, right? So that could have been enforced. This next one, these are drainage facilities that don't have no trespassing signage that could have been enforced, or that can now be enforced with the passage of this bill. Those are also downtown just south of Charleston. Next to the tracks, our Department of Public Safety, Public Works, Streets and Sanitation, Neighborhood Services are actively collaborating with Metro and UPR Security regarding encampment concerns on or near railroad tracks. We're cleaning up 2 to 5, maybe sometimes more encampments per month, which generates 20 to 25 tons of debris that's in the right-of-way alone, to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, of what you just mentioned. Over the last few years, there have been some fires from encampments that have caused damage to bridges, buildings, and other structures along the rail corridor. Picture on the left, you can see the scarring on the walls of that structure. On the right is a camper that's underneath the bridge at Washington and the tracks. The thing that's concerning about this particular picture is all of the infrastructure that is along and into the tracks that could be damaged with those folks there. So while we've not had any true catastrophes, as I've shown here, along our section of the railroad tracks, this ordinance is a proactive measure intended to keep people and property safe. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Seeing no questions up here, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to step forward and make a comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Mr. Ford, the only conversation I've had about this particular ordinance was in the Reno ordinance. I think on your first or second slide, it mentioned storm drains. And so I just wondered storm drains and how they're included within this. And I talked about it with our Director of Public Works, and I don't think I ever understood it. Sorry. It's because specifically I drive by the drainage ditch along Rancho every day.
Right.
And the encampments there, I'm guessing right now, are between 75 and 100 people, and it's probably worse than what we have just seen right now.
Right.
And I know that's NDOT property, and so I'm just anxious. I fear for those folks because I see them walking out of there, and I worry about hitting them, to be honest with you. So I just wanted to make sure, like, do we need to include drainage ditches in ours, or is that included, or how do we?
That would be included. So this ordinance includes anything within 100 feet of either direction in any direction of the furthest outside tracks. So you have 100 feet outside of that. And then on top of that, the new encampment addresses all of the drainage easements that we have regardless.
And how, because it's an NDOT property, but we can enforce, how do we coordinate and work through that? And I just think that's important for me to understand it.
Sure, we work with the UPRR security and their staff, the track folks, the operations guys. They had one security officer, I'm not sure if you're aware, the UPRR had one security officer that was responsible for Southern Nevada and I think into Utah. They had one guy. He resigned several weeks ago. They have not yet refilled that position. So we're working with the operations guys that run the tracks in enforcing and working, again, with the more teams, with neighborhood services, with DPS, with Metro, to do what we can with the personnel we have.
What if it's not tracks? What if it's the drainage ditch, like next to Rancho, and it's NDOT property?
It's NDOT property. We would, I know Matthew Meyer and our Public Works works really closely with NDOT in working on those things and getting that coordinated. We are trying to get an agreement with them that would allow us to go into those types of properties without having to get a permit every time.
Do we bill the state for a code violation?
I wish we could.
Okay. Just figured I'd ask.
That would be great.
Okay. Any questions up here? Any comments? Okay. I'm going to move to approve bill number 2024-30. And if adopted, this bill will be eligible for adoption at the City Council meeting of October 16th, 2024, unless it's obeyed to a future meeting. And that item passes. And item number 7, bill number 2024-31 for possible action, annexation of 24-0343-ANX1, property located at 6345 North Giuliano Road. This is petitioned by Becker Equities LLC. The acreage is .62 acres, zoned RS20. This is county zoning and RE city equivalent. This is sponsored by Councilman Francis Allen Polensky. I believe Mr. Floyd.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seth Floyd for the record. Not a whole lot to say about this one. Everything is in order. This is part of a residential subdivision of about 8 properties. This is the last one, from what I can tell, that Becker Equities owns, and they are asking to have that annexed into the city, and we have no issues with that. And you read all the pertinent information. It will come in as RE, which is our equivalent zoning, and that, if approved today, that annexation will essentially be effectuated on October 24th, as reflected in the ordinance. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. This is a public hearing for anybody who'd like to comment. Please step forward now. Hearing and seeing none, any questions or comments up here? I will let you make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve item number 7, bill number 2024-31.
There's a motion. Please vote.
Everybody's welcome into the city.
And that item passes, and this bill will be eligible for adoption at the City Council meeting of October 16th, 2024, which brings us to item number 8, citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the recommending committee. If there's anybody who would like to make a comment, please step forward now. And hearing and seeing none, we can adjourn today's meeting. Thanks, everyone, for your help.
That was one of our longest, wasn't it? What is